Good morning. Thank you for being here this morning and being part of a truly historical moment at the College of New Rochelle. I'd like to welcome our students, and there are many of you here, and I'm grateful for you joining us this morning, and our faculty and staff. I'd like to welcome our trustees with us this morning, Gwen Adolph, who will be assuming the role of Chair of the Board of Trustees this May. Welcome, Gwen. And I'd like to welcome Carla Romita, a trustee. Yes, there is a connection between Romita Auditorium and the Romita family. Welcome, Carla. And I'd like to welcome Dr. Betty Roberts. I know there she is hiding in the background. Betty, thank you for all that you've done in bringing us our wonderful guest. As the first Catholic college for women in the state of New York, the College of New Rochelle is firmly committed to the same values and traditions that inspired the Ursulines who founded this college 112 years ago. An educational foundation that is grounded in the liberal arts, a special dedication to women's education, leadership, and empowerment, and a commitment to social justice, service, and diversity. Thus, celebrating Black History and Women's History Month is simply a manifestation of our mission. And recognizing and remembering the important people, events, contributions, and historical importance of both women and African American men and women is central to our educational core and student experience both in and out of the classroom. A few days ago, faculty and students watched the motion picture movie Ghosts of Mississippi, which recounts the historical events of the trial of the assassination of Medgar Evers, a Black civil rights activist in Mississippi who was murdered on June 12, 1963, outside his home, and the 30-year struggle his widow, Myrlie Evers, endured to bring justice to this unspeakable crime. That very same iconic civil rights heroine is right here with us today, and it gives me great pleasure and a distinct honor and privilege to introduce Myrlie Evers-Williams. Myrlie Evers-Williams is an extraordinary leader, civil rights activist, author, educator, politician, and journalist who relied on both deeply rooted faith and dauntless perseverance to bring Medgar's assassin to justice. She bravely accepted the baton that was passed on to her by Medgar to carry out the important work they started in the civil rights movement. And she has carried that torch with great grace, compassion, dignity, and steadfast determination for 50 years. The many moments of reflection in her autobiography speak great truths to all of us about serviam, the Ursuline phrase for I will serve, a commitment to service, and she says, I believe that true fulfillment in any individual's life comes as a result of doing service, giving of self, embracing an idea or a principle, and being willing to fight for it. Activism is involvement, and it could take many forms. It is always a process involving dedication, participation, and movement toward a goal. Good works nurture one's soul and build a sense of self-confidence. And toward the end of her autobiography, she offers this touching wisdom for life, our motto, reflection about gratitude. It is often said that when you are older, if you have lived a good, honorable life, you are permitted to enjoy it a second time. You will have righteous acts and beautiful memories to look back on. And your life will be filled with the wonderful people your heart has touched. Though some of your recollections evoke sadness, through the grace of God and your own inner strength, when you have come through the hard times with dignity and insight, you are filled with gratitude. So on behalf of the entire College of New Rochelle community, we welcome you, Myrlie Evers-Williams. It is now my pleasure to introduce and welcome Sunny Hostin, an American lawyer, journalist, columnist, and social commentator. Welcome, Sunny. Sunny began her career as a law clerk. She went on to work as an associate at a law firm in Maryland and then became a trial attorney in the U.S. Department of Justice Antitrust Division. She later became Assistant United States Attorney in the District of Columbia. Sunny is now a very well-known legal expert and TV personality who is often called upon for her analysis on various provocative issues in high-profile criminal cases in the news, such as the Bernie Madoff scandal, the George Zimmerman trial, the unrest in Ferguson and Baltimore, the AME church shooting in Charleston, and the Bill Cosby scandal. Sunny recently returned to ABC News, recently as last week, as the senior legal correspondent and analyst. How very fortunate we are to have both Sunny and Myrlie here at the College of New Rochelle, and we celebrate and pay tribute to both Black History Month and Women's History Month. Welcome, Sunny and Myrlie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for that warm welcome. I am just honored to be here with Miss Myrlie, if I may call you that, who really is a civil rights icon. And I understand that some of the classes saw The Ghost of Mississippi, which I've seen, I'm sure. Many have you seen it? Yes. So I've seen, and now many of you've seen it, but Miss Myrlie lived it. And so I'd like you to perhaps give us some insight into what the students didn't get the chance to really understand just from seeing the movie.
If I may, I would just simply like to say I'm overwhelmed by the size of this group here, and I'm absolutely delighted to see you all, and thank you so very much for the invitation to this wonderful institution of higher learning, and particularly to someone I have come to call my daughter, Professor. Just stand. Just stand. No, no. I was always told that one should never start off with an apology, and I'm going to do just that. Apologize for not being here earlier. Just a little bit under the weather with all of the travel. But there are things in life that become very, very important to us. And I have been driven for at least 60 years for justice, equality, peace, respect for humankind. You know the story, at least I think you do, of my husband being shot down at the doorstep of our home, with my children and I witnessing that. And after all of these years, the pain is still there. But we human beings have an opportunity to take whatever comes our way, make the most of it, absorb it, and use it to hopefully do what is right and just in it. I'm going to do something that many women say that one should not do. I'm going to share my age with you. March the 17th, I will mark my 83rd birthday. An awful lot of living has gone on with that. Many, many, many changes of hope, of anger, of promise, of hatred, and you can think of any other emotion that you wish, and I guarantee you have probably been through it. But I also realize that I'm not alone in these emotions and things that happen. Emotions for the good of self and people, emotions for building anger and hatred, that I believe this country is in the throes of all of that today. And it's very upsetting to me. But I have also lived long enough to know that the mixture of all of those things make for life as we know it, and for the promise of what can be. Medgar Evers worked, lived, gave his life for what could be and what he believed in. Both of us native Mississippians, and I'll try to make my answers as short as I can.
This is wonderful.
I, growing up as an only child in a home of teachers and administrators, told as a child to take advantage of all of the things that you had, but never question the system. Whereas, on the other hand, Medgar grew up always questioning the system, because he certainly had a father who did that and who paid prices along the way. Fast forward, we met in college, a little college at Orlecoin, Mississippi, Orlecoin State University. And we met there within the first 15 minutes that I was on campus. Yes. This young man presented himself with all kinds of dignity and whatnot. And when you are 16, 17 years old, you look for the fire and excitement and all of that, and that never happened. And it was, who is he? What is he? I found out that he was a veteran, World War II, and someone who believed deeply in his country and in his people, and that he was determined to work to see that all of us had the kind of justice that we deserved in that country. To move forward, throughout our life, and I'm probably going around some of the questions that you would have there, and you might have to lead me back in. Okay. Please feel free to do so. Justice and equality was a theme throughout our lives, one that I did not embrace completely, did not understand, was fearful of it, but it was what it was. And for someone 18 years old, I was deeply, madly in love. So you kind of go along with what your mate feels is right. We went through years of dealing with injustices, of fighting for freedom. And when Medgar was taken from us, my life completely changed. So it was one of, all right, what are you going to do? I did go back to school and get my degree, and there were other things that came along, but the drive for justice never left me. And fast forward to the movie. I disagreed with the movie. Does that come as any surprise to you? For those who might not have known the history, the movie was lacking in substance. The movie also did not depict Medgar Evers really as he was. It was a movie about the district attorney, not about Medgar. I recall sitting in a group, I'll try to make this quick, sitting in a group similar to you, and the people were asked, what do you think about the movie? The question was, well, who was Medgar Evers? It was not about Medgar Evers. It was about the district attorney. Medgar Evers was a character that was used to get the publicity. I know I don't have to tell you about that. The publicity for the movie. I was very, very disappointed in it. It's not the first time I'm saying that, because it did have certain educational values to it. But the real story of Medgar Evers, the civil rights activist, has not been told to this day. So you make decisions. What are you going to fight for? The one thing that came to the top of my list was fighting for the justice of this man's life. People told me, people of my own race and others said, you don't need to fight for that. It is over, it is done. And I had to remind people that my fight was just beginning. My fight for justice and equality was just beginning. I'm going to stop here. No, I know. Get the tape and zip me up. But my battle has just begun, and it's still ongoing today.
Well, let's pick up there in the sense that you devoted the next 30 years of your life seeking justice for your husband. And in 1994, I believe, his killer was finally convicted of first-degree murder.
After 3 trials.
After 3 trials. Did that give you any closure? Because I was a prosecutor, and so I always ask crime victims, did the trial, did the work give you closure? Most of them, believe it or not, say no. It's just the beginning for them.
It gave, pardon me, it gave me closure in the sense that almost everyone told me that justice would not prevail. Pardon me. That in the state of Mississippi there was no such thing as a Caucasian male even being tried, let alone convicted. Try to be brief. There were 3 trials over that period of time. The first one was a living nightmare. Because my people were afraid. So they would not speak out. They would not come. I remember how lonely it was sitting in the jury room, almost alone. And on the other side, for Beckwith, it was filled up with supporters. But I firmly think that if you believe in something strongly enough, you will work and do whatever is necessary to see that justice prevail. So it was lonely. I was talked about in ways that I don't necessarily like amongst my own people. Who does she think she is? She can't do it, let it go. Fast forward to the 3rd trial, and I'm going to say this. If you believe in something, do not give up on it. I don't care what length of time it takes. And after that first trial, when he was released, there was a parade all the way from Jackson to Greenwood in his honor. He also ran for lieutenant governor. He didn't win, thank God. But he was given the crown of prince. In the meantime, we struggle. But there, with this little meek, mild individual, a strength that I didn't even know that I had. And I could not let Medgar down. So, it was a challenge. Finally, we got to the 3rd trial. And I recall praying the night before the jury came in. And I said to Medgar, I have done the best I can. I don't know what else I can do. I prayed to the God that I worship. And I said, Father, it has always been in your hands. Your will be done. My children and I were in this hotel, and we got the word. The judge says, come, the verdict is in. And we were expecting that verdict to come in a couple of days later. We rushed over there. You should have seen pulling hair curlers out of the hair and trying to put on lipstick, and lipstick's going up here instead of on the lips. Just the nervousness of it all. Arriving there and hearing the crowd of people talking, of hearing the people run up the stairs to get there for the verdict, and to sit there, read the verdict, guilty. Even to this day, I can't explain to you how I felt. Happy, relieved, full of justice. And all I could say was, yeah, Medgar, yeah, it happened. The word persevere is such a strong word. And if you believe in something, if you believe in it and in yourself, you persevere. And at some point, sometime, some way, it all comes around to being just and to being right. And I remembered how the governor of Mississippi came in at the first trial while I was testifying, walked in, paused, looked at me, walked over to Beckwith, and slapped him on his shoulder. Now you tell me if that isn't a message to jurors. That said something. So with all of these things that you go through, something good comes from it. At least I believe that. And I have seen many things come as a result of the movie, even though it was not accurate.
Well, many people are saying, are in the midst of a new civil rights movement, a renewed civil rights movement, people seeking justice, sort of in the post-Trayvon Martin era. What are your thoughts about that? Are we experiencing this new civil rights movement? I mean, people are saying that the Black Lives Matter movement is a terrorist group. What are your thoughts about this new civil rights movement?
Black lives do matter. In a sense, it's too sad that we have to be reminded of that. When I say we, I mean the American public as a whole. It's a new time, it's a new day. There are new methods, seemingly, that are being used to bring that to our attention. But I can recall thinking and discussing with friends the yesteryear of what I happen to be a part of, where we demonstrated in the streets and we were beaten and dogs bit us and the whole bit. But that was a part of history to move us forward in this country. There have been other things that have happened along the way that have not received the recognition from the public that should have been. The organizations, the old organizations, you know, they wouldn't like this, but it is an old organization, the NAACP, which I headed and for a while. Some of the strategies needed desperately to be upgraded. We need more young people knowledgeable of our past, and hopefully you're getting some of that history in your classes here, to instill in you and those who are not within these walls the interest in what was, not to repeat exactly what was, but to learn from those strategies and build new ones, as well as lift up what was already there. When Trayvon Martin was killed, and the trial as such was taking place, I felt such anger. And I felt as though I should buy myself one of those black hoodies and go into neighborhoods that were still, quote, lily white. And they wouldn't be able to see my face to determine exactly who I was, but they could see the blackness. I was angry enough to really want to put on one of those hoodies and walk through some neighborhoods where I knew I would still not be welcome, to see what would happen. Mm-hmm. You know, we're in discussion as to whether Black Lives Matter, this matters, should we do this, should we do that? The good thing of all of that is that it's still being debated. Mm-hmm. We're doing more than talking about it. I have differences with some of the strategies and techniques, and I'll share this very briefly. And forgive me, I'm not sure, was that Baltimore where we had...
the rioting?
Yeah, Baltimore. The rioting. And the cameras caught this mother.
I've interviewed her.
You did? All right. The cameras caught this mother beating on her son and pulling him away. And the message was, don't tear down what you already have. Build on it. We're smart. We aren't ignorant. I said to myself, you go, girl, you go. And I thought, if some smart person were to make Mother's Day cards with that, they'd probably find a good business. Mm-hmm. But it's about respect, it's about dignity of oneself, it's a commitment to what is right and what is just. And I believe we are in a point of time where people of honesty are rehashing what happened in the past. Mm-hmm. Hopefully reviewing lessons learned, but planning and devoting themselves and children, that's across racial lines now, about what justice and equality really is. Now, I'm sure you have other questions, and I'll wrap this up. What I'm going to say, but I am terribly disturbed about America today. Terribly disturbed. What is this country? What is it going to be? You watch television. I'm sure you watch some of the debates. And I fall back on the thing that my grandmother held so close and dear to her. Father, help us, for we know not what we do. The hatred, the violence, if only in words, to me set this country back. Mm-hmm. So far. And I find myself wondering, what am I and others like me supposed to do? Do we just let this, in my opinion, evil continue to expand, ignore it, and say, oh, we'll settle it when we get to the booth, polling booth? Or what? And I think it's a question that America, regardless of whether it wants to or not, will have to decide in the very near future, because we are being observed worldwide.
Yes. And so let's talk about politics. That was on mine.
Oh, dear.
You've been involved in politics for a long time. I mean, you ran for Congress in 1970 when President Obama was inaugurated a second time. You played a significant role in that. What are your thoughts about the end of the first Black presidency, and whether or not that presidency has perhaps led to some of the anger and the frustration that we are seeing, I think, in the Republican Party and sort of the ascendancy of Donald Trump?
I personally feel without a doubt that Obama's presidency has lifted the top of the box off of the ugliness in America. Obama won. I really don't think it was expected. But he won. His presidency, in my humble estimation, has not been perfect, but what is perfect? This country has moved forward. We have seen some legislators fight in different ways to be sure that his programs and ideas did not move forward. Today and the elections coming up are like giving others who disapproved of his being there an opportunity to speak, and more than that, to act upon the way that they feel. You know, we Americans like to say we stand up for justice and equality and right, but you peel that layer off, and surprisingly so, we find that prejudice, hatred, and all those negative things are still kind of boiling underneath. To me, it's ready to surface, burst into flame. I'm very concerned, I'm frightened about this country. I joked with a friend of mine who is from Canada. And I said, your parents are still there. See if you can't find a little apartment for me. Because I may be forced to move to Canada. You know, we human beings are such creative, complicated beings. I believe there are cycles. And there are times when we will have peace and somewhat accord, and times where there will be war internally within our borders. I just don't know what to say about what's happening now. Except to say to all of you, particularly you students, regardless of age, as you study, look deep into your own hearts, into your research, and see what you see. And hopefully come out of all of that committed to do whatever is right. Now, whatever is right is how you depend what is right and what isn't. Because what I might think is right might be absolutely contrary to what someone else thinks. I fear for the United States of America in the direction in which we are going now. I also feel that the world is watching us waiting to see what's going to happen, already making plans for what will or will not happen. And I think this country is in a precarious situation right now, because we don't seem to know what it is what we want, or afraid to say what it is that we want.
What about young people? Because you mentioned that your husband grew up questioning the system, and it seems that many students are certainly questioning the system, because we're seeing protests in the streets, protests around college campuses also. Mm-hmm. What can students do in terms of the search for equality and justice, given that it is this election year?
That's a tough question.
I know.
Research, for one thing. Try to be specific in your research about politics in America. Surely from your home, your community, you have been given some guidance as to those things. Find a way that you can be involved, and by all means, register and vote, regardless of what you feel. Vote what you feel, but vote. We still have that right. It hasn't been taken from us, even though for people of my color, we are still having difficulty trying to register and vote. But by all means, do that and become active in community groups, in your college campuses. You have something, even though I haven't been on this campus except for the few minutes here and the drive through, you have something beautiful here. And I'm sure it's beautiful within the walls as from without, to nurture the mind and to build thoughts, hopefully positive ones, and take those thoughts to heart and be committed to work for what you feel. And I guess I'm saying, even if you think and feel evil, you know, I don't want to say that. But in America, we all have the opportunity to make up our minds and do what we feel is best to do. I don't know what the outcome will be. Now, watch television, and the candidates from my viewpoint, I see it almost two ways, and that's not quite right. Evil and good. There's always that middle ground there. And in this country, we have a chance to act upon how we feel. Do we know how blessed we are to still be able to do that? But my question now is, what about the future? I don't know what the future is going to be. I wish I could satisfy myself in saying, okay, it's going to happen this way, it's going to happen that way. Personally, I reach a point where I can't watch television for too long. Sorry. But I can't. I can't. I can take it in small doses and try to digest it. But for myself, I know that I will always, for whatever time I have left, be involved in justice and equality and hopefully peace for all of us.
Well, this is somewhat of a historic election year, because now we have a woman running for president again. She's not the first woman to run for president, but certainly she's a woman running for president. And when I interview young women, I'm often hearing, well, I'm not going to vote with my uterus. is actually a quote that I got.
I'm glad to know that. Maybe I'll use it.
Saying that just because Hillary Clinton is a woman, she doesn't necessarily have the young female voting base. And statistics have shown that. She's suffering with young women. What do you think about that?
I hope young women will give her a chance, at least to hear her, and certainly make your own decisions as to whether you can support her or not. I'm of the age where I was a part of the Clinton era. And I personally know some of the feelings, motivations, and whatnot that propelled us during that Clinton era to support both, because she was there. Are you asking me to make an endorsement?
No, I am not. I am
Good,
not.
thank you.
I am not.
I'm fearful for my country. I don't know where we are headed. I truly don't. I'm fearful when I realize that the rest of the world is carefully looking at us, dissecting us. And I'm sure some countries are looking at us as a possibility. Can we now say, gotcha? Just waiting for America to slide a little bit. So we have these candidates before us. I'm glad to see that people are voting. I mean, active in the campaigns. And I do something that my grandmother taught me to do, but particularly when in doubt about something, pray. Now, there are lots of people who said prayer, forget that, that's not it. But get involved, even if you, regardless of your preferences, get involved, register and vote, because there have been too many people who have given their lives, shed blood, that we would be able to do that in this country of ours.